This is a 13th episode and we don't have a theme song, so I'm singing this silly tune. Oh yeah! And a nice summer to everybody out there. Welcome again to the latest episode of the Minsk and Friends Speakeasy. I am Minsk.
I am overheated.
Oh yeah, we are feeling the heat at the moment. There's a bit of a heat wave coming over to Finland at the moment. I can't complain too much because it's so uncertain whether we get a nice warm summer or not. So I guess we'll put up with a couple of days of this. It's okay. I don't know.
I think we'll be fine. It only happens for a little while.
Yeah, we'll probably enjoy rainy season. Then later on, I don't know. We'll see. It's very unpredictable.
Yeah.
So, we are, it's been a while since last time. We kind of missed the month of May. That was mainly because there really wasn't any game that really tickled our fancy. The one game that we had our eyes on was Hood, Outlaws, and Legends, but that one did not resonate well with basically anyone. It seemed to be a not good game, and I know, Joonatan, you have actually played this game, so can you give a really quick vibe? I believe you agreed with the general sentiment that it wasn't very good.
Yeah, I reviewed the game for another outlet, and in the words of a colorful classic cartoon character, it stinks.
Yeah, it's... I guess because I was hoping for a game that would be like Thief or Dishonored, but with like that translated to a multiplayer element. And I guess it's just too much of an ask to make that kind of game work in competitive multiplayer, because it really doesn't work on any of like those aforementioned single player games. It really doesn't work very well the way those do.
Well, I mean, it's such an easy thing to really make, and I say that this is like the kind of, armchair criticism. Of course, it's hard to develop any kind of game.
Yeah.
In this kind of scenario, like, all their choices just seem so utterly bizarre. Like, every level is built around that you have to capture the massive amount of wealth that is usually like a single heavy chest from a location that the sheriff is guarding. And the sheriff, for some reason, is this massive demonic entity that kills you with one hit when he catches you. And okay, that's fine. That could be still interesting. You have to, hide from him and be careful. But the characters are so overpowered that you can essentially kill everyone on the map really quickly without any kind of penalties. Which just makes it so that then you just have to watch out for the sheriff, who is kind of slow, and you can just kind of... And the tracking is so bad on it that you can just easily glitch him into, walking into a wall and never getting out of it.
Right.
So the big thing becomes finding the other team. And the game maps are so small that all the fights, all the levels essentially boil down to the two teams throwing themselves at each other, killing each other until they get the chest to the exit point. And the exit point is not a who gets there first or who is clever enough to bring the thing there first. It's just one location where you have to leave the treasure and then you have to wait as a meter rises to 100% for it to be transported out of the map and you win. And it doesn't even matter if your team gets 95% of the meter filled. If the other team shows up at the last second and fills up that last 5%, they automatically win.
Right, yeah.
So every fight and every match ended up with people playing one single character, because it doesn't limit you to, that one person can only play one character like in Apex Legends.
Yeah.
So everybody played not Friar Tuck, but Little John. Because Little John is the tank who has lots of health, who has really devastating area of effect attacks, and is just a ridiculously overpowered brute. So everybody plays him, and then you have just 6 Little Johns running around the map, hitting each other, and it was just a complete waste of time. I didn't see anything fun in that game.
Yeah, it sounds like you said, like there could be a couple of simple fixes would at least improve the experience, not allowing multiple classes, doing something with that exit system, like the meter resets when the enemy team picks up the treasure, or both teams have separate, exit points that they can only use. Something like this would immediately make it a little better, but in its current state, it's...
Yeah, or even just not make it a single treasure that everybody has to collect. Like, just make it so that there's, there's an X amount of treasure in a map, and then the team that collects most of it wins. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that's our super short review of that. I can't really comment because I haven't played it myself. I'm just going on the vibe that I'm hearing from everybody. But great concept. Someone else should probably take a crack at this to refine it, or the team should really work hard to make a second pass on this concept, and then we might have something good. Yeah.
Well, let's go on to topic number 1. That's more of a major thing. This is our post E3 recording, so it would be remiss of us not to talk a little bit about that. Last year, of course, due to pressing global circumstances, we didn't have an E3 to cover, so this is our first time doing that. Exciting! So, what was your general vibe of the E3 conference this year? Satisfied?
It didn't really feel like E3.
Okay, why is that?
I think it's because it's not in a physical place. But
the big one, yeah, of course.
Yeah, but also this was the first E3 that I covered as a member of the press, so I was really excited about that.
Cool.
And they completely dropped the ball on it. The press access was really poorly made. It was really difficult to find information from there. All the contacts that I managed to get from there have been through a lot of jumping through hoops, and it felt like that it was really last minute and they were panicking about it, because Jeff Kiley's Summer Game Fest, which he ran as a counter E3, did everything else so much better. His thing felt more like an E3 than E3 did.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've lost kind of track which games were at E3 and which were at Summer of Game, because there were so many really solid presentations from the aforementioned one. Right.
But then overall, as far as reveals go, I felt that it's going to be quite a slow year unless something really surprising comes our way, because all the reveals were stuff we knew was already coming, and a lot of the big ones, and I think it's also because Sony didn't have their press conference. They usually have their because they split from E3 in 2018.
Yeah.
But they've had their Sony Next or whatever PlayStation Next thing going simultaneously, usually a couple of days before or after.
Yeah.
But now they haven't even announced it, so who knows? And it's hard to kind of gauge what's going on. Xbox and Microsoft had a really solid presentation because they were all pushing the whole, look how much exclusivity we have. Look what's coming directly for the Xbox Game Pass at the same time as, they're coming to retail stores. And that was all great, except that the Xbox Game Pass on the PC is still a broken piece of shit. But it's really hard to enjoy it because it's nearly impossible to install stuff on it. It's really painful to play on it. And unless they fix it, the Game Pass on the PC, it's a hard ticket to sell in its current form.
It's really only banking on the day one availability thing, basically.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it's a great deal if it works. I have the Xbox Series X as well as a PlayStation 5 at home. So I'm happy that some of these things are coming. I've been now playing Yakuza Like a Dragon on the Xbox, and that's been great because it's something I probably wouldn't have gone out and bought, but now I can try it out and actually, get into it kind of safely by having this subscription on it.
Yeah, that's really cool. As a Yakuza fan, I'm happy to hear that you have a chance to try out that stuff.
And other than that, I'm looking forward to Starfield, but I'm also, really aware that it's still many years out, and then the new Elder Scrolls is even more years out. So I'm kind of dying for a good RPG or action RPG, but I didn't see any others really at the presentation. And I think the big thing is Elden Ring, because we've been waiting for that, and now we have suddenly a vast amount of information on it, and we have a release date, the 22nd of January.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably going to be your fix for the big RPG. That's the closest one for the big RPG that was presented this year.
That does feel like it, because nobody else seems to be competing, and the whole thing that it's a big open world From Software game with, tons of stuff to do. I think they mentioned 12 bosses altogether, plus 10 hidden bosses, so there's going to be a lot to play with.
Yeah, it visually, of course, I was one of the first to be just like, well, this looks a lot like Dark Souls, but you have a horse. But yeah, absolutely, there's a lot going on in that game, so it's definitely an evolution. Once again, another evolution of this genre that FromSoft seems to have perfected. So I think that's a big one to look forward to. Any other game come to mind that... any surprise games that peaked out for you?
Not really. I don't think there was a single game that I was like, I haven't heard about this, and I'm excited now. I'm glad we have a release date for 12 Minutes, which has been one of the small indie games that I've been looking forward to. But no, other than that, I don't think I saw... Well, I mean, Sea of Thieves surprised me, that they actually are still supporting it, and they're supporting it with something that I really love, that they're combining Pirates of the Caribbean with that game.
Yeah, that was a big get for them. I was very surprised when Jack Sparrow appeared in the trailer.
Yeah, and they showed a lot of the music in the trailer, and those clearly were not the original actors doing the voices, but... I'm fine if I'm really happy and excited if they manage to get the music cues, because Hans Zimmer's score is really inherently tied to that franchise. So I would love to be able to go and roam the high seas and then have suddenly Davy Jones's theme start in the background with the low chords coming in, the dun 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 dun. And then suddenly the Flying Dutchman coming out of the waves. I think I would just be in pure, childlike heaven.
Yeah, and best of all, that's a free update for existing Sea of Thieves owners. So I think we've got our plan ready for this when it comes out, yeah?
And it's coming out, like in a couple of weeks, a couple of days?
Holy shit, you're absolutely right. It is really, really soon. All right.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that's a surprisingly good... You're right, that's a surprisingly good find from E3, that one.
Yeah, and that was one of those, you're not expecting anything, and then them coming out, really swinging and saying, hey, we're doing this. Enjoy. That's the kind of stuff that I'm really happy. Yeah, hey, it launches on June 22nd, which is in 2 days.
Yeah, of the day of our recording. So by the time this episode comes out, it's already out. So you guys listening, if you have Sea of Thieves, get on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you have an Xbox, it's free on the Xbox Game Pass. So just really go for it.
Right on. Well, for myself, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I can't comment on the kind of press journalism side, because I'm not, of course, privy to that. But just as as a gamer, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I was expecting worse, because all the signs due to the global pandemic were that this year would be slower. The development of games was like all the games that were almost done, came out in 2020, but then the production would be stalled for games in the midst of or beginning production. But despite that, I was, there was still good stuff revealed. It's true that a lot of it is in 2022, like not a lot coming this year. And Nintendo saved a lot on that front. They had some good stuff coming out for this year, but overall, yeah, I was actually still happy that this much, good content was coming our way. I'm now sold on Stalker 2. When it was first announced, I was a little leery because the first Stalker is incredibly janky, and it's been a long project, so a little bit of reservation, are they going to get it right this time? But that looked really good, what they showed of Stalker 2. And they're going for a little bit more polish on the presentation and storytelling this time. So it's getting a little closer to fellow Soviet punk game Metro. And I'm all for that. I think I might be a little bit on the minority because Stalker fans like the kind of simulationism of being in the zone. Maybe not less so for like this kind of storytelling. I want to see like what happens with current gen Stalker. That's going to be really exciting. Apart from that, my surprise hit was Metal Slug Tactics, because that game was like the poster child of I didn't know I want this until it was presented to me, because it's absolutely beautiful pixel art of Metal Slug with a turn-based tactics system. So that's like two things I really like put together. So I really want to see how that turns out. And the funny thing is, I was also thinking that, this isn't exactly like Advance Wars, but this kind of fills the same niche as Advance Wars, which is a series that Nintendo is never bringing back. And then a couple of days later in the Nintendo Direct, they're like, we're remaking Advance Wars 1 and 2. And I was like, oh my god! So that was my other like big hit. So I have, for my weird tastes, I got like these tiny games that came out. Absolutely clicked for me, and those are the ones I'm hoping for. I believe they're both coming out this year, so tactics games fans are eating well this year, I have to say. It's exciting times on that front.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because I haven't ever been a fan of the tactics games. I haven't actually played Advance Wars ever, and my only kind of touching point with Metal Slug has been, playing it at an arcade.
Yeah, well, that's the only genre that Metal Slug has been in. No, I'm lying. There's one like crummy gacha game out at the moment, but
Yeah, but like real games. Yeah, I'm excited to try them. I have no kind of investment in them, so I think that's why I just didn't mention them. Stalker, I am hesitant to be excited about, exactly for the reasons that you said.
Right.
It's been quite some time since the original Stalker game, and that production has not been an easy one for the sequel. So I am worried, but I hope it's good, because we need more Stalker in our lives.
Yep. I guess I'm a little more hopeful because it looks like they have their shit together and Microsoft is backing them. So I'm daring to be hopeful on that front now. But before we jump off of E3, I do have to call out the the most amusing most amusing game that I saw the trailer for. I hope you've seen as well the tour de force that is Final Fantasy Origin, Stranger of Paradise.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting because you get to kill chaos. Oh man, it's so dumb, but I don't know yet whether I'm gonna hate it or love it, because we've talked like between ourselves. We talked about my relationship with Edge, which I have a very complicated relationship, and usually if it's for laughs, I'm all about it. This one doesn't seem to be for laughs, and I'm a little leery of such a goofy, angry man version of Final Fantasy. I don't know what your vibe was.
I was, after the trailer came out, like many others, making fun of the whole kill who? It's really unclear. Can you say it one more time? Because if you haven't seen the trailer, it's such a poorly cut together trailer that they keep repeating, like, we're gonna kill chaos. I'm after chaos. It's important we get chaos. Oh, I think I see chaos.
That is chaos.
Yeah, it's like a child wrote it.
Yeah, it's so funny. But to give credit to the game, like, I've heard people who have gotten the demo to work, because that's also been a brouhaha that the demo has been completely broken. It apparently is a competent ARPG by most people's accounts, and it looks like it's supposed to be like a reimagining of the very first Final Fantasy as an action RPG, and that on its own is a fun concept to me. So it's too bad that they married it with this overly serious edgelord aesthetic, because I don't know if that's what I want. And I don't know if it's really going to be a remake of Final Fantasy 1, I don't know how they're going to, like, keep up the edge, because the original Final Fantasy 1 is this, it feels like a D&D campaign that is put together from various adventures that the DM bought from the store that aren't connected to each other, because you just dick around the world, like doing various quests to help out the people you meet. And I don't know, like when, edgy Nomura hero man gets done killing Garland, which, spoilers, in the original game is like the prologue of the whole game. Like, how's his band of 3 edgelords gonna be like, well, that's done. I guess we're just gonna travel around doing good deeds for various people around the world. Like, yeah. They can't do that. That's just gonna be ridiculous. So I don't know how they're gonna carry out, if that is their goal. I don't know how they're gonna carry out this reimagining to its end.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to play the demo yet because, like you said, it was utterly broken when it came out. It did finally get fixed, I think, on Friday.
Okay.
But I've been busy, so I haven't had a chance to try it. I'm gonna go give it a playthrough today. The people who have played it have, like you mentioned, said that it's kind of fun, but because I'm not a big fan of the gameplay style of like Devil May Cry, and I think this is from the developers of that series.
No. This is the Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden.
Okay, yeah. Well, they're all interchangeable in my head, and I realize I'm angering all 5 of our listeners with this because it's.
Oh yeah, there's some comments coming our way after that one, but bring it on.
But yeah, Ninja Gaiden, I'm actually playing through the Ninja Gaiden remastered trilogy that just came out. And I'm trying to kind of get into it and understand what I've been missing out. But the gameplay style is just not my thing. So I'm kind of confused and kind of curious to go try it out and see how a Final Fantasy game would work with these mechanics. I'm just mostly bitter that we didn't get any news on Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2.
Oh yeah, once again, I imagine they. Well, I don't know, because they have all the assets to work with, but on the other hand, they have to think about future consoles or development for PS5 and Xbox Series X alone.
Yeah, I was hoping that we would at least hear something that it's wait for it next year, and then it would be 2 years after the release of the original one, because they kept saying when the first one came out that you don't have to wait so long between releases, and now I'm worried that we are going to be waiting 5 years between games. And if this turns out that they're going to want to make 4 of them and it's 5 years between each game, I'm going to be almost 50 when it comes out.
It's gonna be a generational project to get all those games done.
Right. I really hope that they get their act together. I don't know what they're doing right now, but it's just it's kind of a panic of please finish it, because Final Fantasy VII Remake was one of my favorite games that they have made in years.
Yeah, we're absolutely, we're not even shitting on Square Enix here, and the games they've put out, they've really gotten back into their stride. But something. Hopefully, they can figure out how to make games in a timely manner, because it's going to be a problem. It feels like these days the hardware scene changes so fast as well, with consoles and PC parts, that you kind of have to keep up with that as well when making games. So
yeah,
but I think those were the big ones for E3. Yeah, there's stuff to look forward to. No big letdown, I don't think, overall. Let us roll on to the main topic of today. We do have a game to review, as we usually do. Speaking of, we brought up some games with a lot of jank and edge, and this one, I think, encapsulates a lot of that, but just forward, I think this is a pretty good game, despite all that. It's Necromunda, Hired Gun, the recently released FPS game set in the Warhammer 40k world, specifically the Necromunda setting. This is the first FPS game in 40k I think, since Fire Warrior that was on PlayStation 2. I don't think they've done FPSs. I might be wrong. I think there might have been some like first-person games in between. It's hard to keep track. There have been a bazillion 40K games in the last few years because Games Workshop kind of opened up the license much more than in the past, which has led to a lot of all sorts of games. That's very hard to keep track of. We don't have time, I don't think, to go through what the hell 40K itself is, because it's so expansive. It is an incredibly popular sci-fi setting. It's a backdrop for a miniatures game that Games Workshop makes. If you don't know about it, there's plenty of people happy to tell you about the lore online. So feel free to pause the podcast and spend a few hours looking that up. But now that you're back from that little wiki dive, I know, Joonatan, you said you are not really into this setting. You don't really know anything about it. Have you played any Warhammer 40,000 game before Necromunda?
Yeah, I've played a bunch of the games before. But I think my thing with this is that I never liked the setting because of how seriously it takes itself, or how seriously some of the games and some of the gamers of the setting take itself.
Right.
Because like I wanted to go and check up on this before we started the podcast, and I found the people who created the 40K setting, who were the originators of it.
Yeah.
And they've been kind of vocal about the fact that they meant this to be a satire. Like, they really wanted this to be, like, a kind of a, we're trying to make this into a warning, and, like, look how ridiculous this world is, and look how we should, treat it with this kind of a little bit of disdain.
Yeah, for context, this originally came out in, like, around the 80s, and it's very British, so it's in that same mind space that 2000 AD comics, Judge Dredd were made, so it, like, dips into that same kind of zeitgeist.
Yeah. And like Judge Dredd, it's been taken over to the point where you were supposed to consider the Space Marines and these guys as the kind of, wow, these guys are jerks. They've become like these kind of proto-masculine, alpha men who everybody kind of goes like, oh, these are fucking awesome. And it's, my big issue is that, like, even in this game, especially, all of that is treated with this kind of bizarre, not reverence, but this kind of like, this is meant to be cool, even though it's awful.
Yeah, this is the same thing as a lot of like War is Bad series that also end up being, especially like War is Bad themed, like merchandise driven things, like my big favorite Gundam, where it just ends up having to look so cool that message is muddied like very hard. And 40K, I myself was really big on this back in the day. I collected the miniatures as a teenager. I haven't painted up a miniature in over a decade now, so I have dropped off a little bit. A lot of the same reasons you said, like my tastes have just kind of changed. I still have some fondness for this. I will watch some plays of the tabletop, like on YouTube. People are doing a lot of nice recordings of their games. It's nice to look at, but it's true that I kind of don't like the grimdark. That's the term that this genre or this series popularized, was grimdark, for how like just miserable the 41st millennium is for basically everybody. I kind of don't like that vibe anymore that much. Defendants will point out that it's a series where there really isn't any good guy in it, but I guess personally it's a hard sell for me to get super invested in a series like that, where there is no good guy, where it's just supposed to be just a grim look at all the possible failings that can happen to society, I guess.
Yeah, and there's a wonderful part of the lore of like what people have been adding into it, like this kind of idea of what happens to society when it cannot, or will not improve itself anymore. What happens when it stagnates and there are, hundreds of billions of people I think that is an interesting part and an interesting indictment, but I've noticed that none of these things ever explore that aspect.
Yeah, it is all surface level, and I think ultimately, let me just point out why the big reason why they make it all so bleak is that it's all for the miniatures game. They want that players are able to have any two armies fight each other, regardless of what those two armies are, and like there will be several armies that are kind of affiliated with each other, different arms of the Imperium of Mankind, or, you know, there will be like different Eldar craft world. Eldar are like space elves who live on giant colony ships, and they will have like bickering politics between each other. And, you know, there'll just be like all sorts of like different like sub-factions, and they want that everyone's able to play against everyone and it to like kind of be in the canon, like it could be a canonical fight. And unfortunately, to allow for a setting where anybody can fight anybody at any given time, you have to make an incredibly bleak and paranoid and, you know, oppressive world where everyone has very good reason to distrust everybody else around them, and like anything could set off a conflict. And yeah, I'm not like ripping on. I'm not necessarily ripping too much on the setting or like fans. Not all of the fans anyway. But like it's just personally something that I don't know. I like it in doses still. Like I can't say I'm completely disenfranchised from Warhammer 40k, but it's just something that doesn't like anymore kind of rub with my senses, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the world. I'm fascinated by the lore. I just don't like what people are doing with it.
Yeah.
I think we're in the same boat. Like I will. That's why we dipped into Necromunda, because I think both of us had enough of an interest to go, well, let's take a look. I mean, it could be interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, Necromunda, gameplay-wise, also, you know, it's interesting to see yet another, like, fast-paced first-person shooter, and in specifically this setting. That's kind of exciting on its own, don't you think?
I guess so, yeah. There were elements, at least visually, that I found to be exciting and something that were a little bit different. I think we should mention, though, that it feels a little weird. Not weird in a sense, but I feel bad for the developers.
Okay.
Because when I was playing this for a review, I noticed that the version number in the menu screen was something like version 0.5, which means that it's not even the full version 1.0. What they've released onto the market.
Interesting. I did not catch that. That's curious, but also might explain some of the weird kind of lacking decisions made in the game.
Yeah, so I feel really bad for them because whatever has happened, whether it's running out of a budget or being forced by the distributor, but developer Stromon Studios, they have had to release a game that clearly isn't done yet.
Yeah, you can see that in a lot of places. I've especially noticed it just in the story and the pacing of the story, or what there is of the story. So, basic synopsis, Necromunda is this giant, hellish megacity on a planet in the 40k world, which is like a center of production for the rest of the Imperium of Mankind. And in the bowels of this undercity, it's like a lawless place where gangs like are rife. Gang mob rule is like what controls everything, and you are thrust into this setting. And Necromunda is actually originally a spin-off of the miniatures game, meant to be like a smaller scale, like gang fight miniature game. Because in the regular game, you like control like whole like squads and platoons of units, but in the Necromunda miniature game, it's like you control the individual members of a gang, and you like get to like outfit everyone individually, and it's like much more smaller scale. So that's why this specific subsetting was created for 40k, and it creates its kind of own interesting world, like its microcosm, to focus on this corner of this like mega city, which, you know, it's a mega city, but it's like one among a million planets in this world. So it's like its own little world, and that is conveyed very well in this game. I feel like this feels different from the other 40k games that are out there, not least because there's like 0 Space Marines in this, which are, you know, the big kind of poster boy of the series. There's like 0 of those. There's 1 statue I saw of a Space Marine, and like that's it. It's just about this gritty gang politics. But the actual story, you are a bounty hunter, you're trying to do a job of like bagging some person, but then a mysterious third party intervenes and you nearly get killed, and then you have to figure out what's going on. Did you actually figure out what's going on in this game's plot?
No.
Okay.
The plot was such a mess. Like, it's disjointed, and then it just ends suddenly. No, I do confess that eventually, I think I was about 60% through the game, and I gave up on following the plot. It was like, I couldn't care less of what was going on.
Right, yeah, okay, good. So I wasn't the only, I was worried that I was like not paying attention enough, and I was just like missing out on what's going on here, but I think they were going for the idea that it's partly like a life in the bounty hunter thing of you like doing odd jobs that come up with a bounty hunter in this world, but the overarching plot is very poorly developed as you do all of these until you get to the very end of the game and they give a huge exposition dump explaining like suddenly just explaining what's going on with everybody, although I had trouble parsing still what they were talking about since it had been so poorly exposited earlier in the game. And that's where I really felt that this game felt like an unfinished release. It reminded me of like a lot of comic books where the authors realize they're getting canceled earlier, like midway making the comic, and then in the final like issue they have to cram all the stuff they wanted to happen in like several issues of the comic book, just all that exposition and plot twist and everything into that final issue. And that's exactly the same vibe I had trying to follow this plot in this game.
Yeah, and because it's a weird mix of them expecting you to know exactly who they're talking about. Like, there's a lot of things where they just, talk about the factions and the people as if, you were already deeply invested in the lore. And then every once in a while, they just stop to then explain some other things, like, really heavily, which really don't matter. But it's like, it's a weird kind of, like, indecisiveness of, well, which parts do you want to explain?
Yeah, and there's a weird, like, kind of teasing with plot elements that never go anywhere. The biggest one was this mission where you have to, I think it's like you need to send a message to this rival gang by breaking into their, like, shipment factory and, like, destroying one of their cargo. And when you find the cargo, they start, like, expositing, like, oh, there's, like, something really up that's like very high value to them. There's something about this specific cargo, and like I'm like, oh, okay, here's gonna come the big twist. Like they're gonna open up this cargo box, and there's gonna be something huge in there, something that's gonna like change, like the whole plot is gonna like twist there and like start making more sense, and you're gonna understand. And that mission ends with them blowing up the cargo container and being like, oh, there's no time to find out what's in there, like forget about it. And you never find out what was in it, and you find out it didn't matter to anything what that box was.
Yeah, and it's filled with stuff like that the whole game, and it's just such a wasted opportunity, really.
And then there's like, when you mentioned that there's like lore that seems to be assumed that people know, the character Kal Jerico, he is an actual character from the setting. Did you know that?
No, that's completely new for me.
Yeah, Kal Jerico is an actual, like, he's in the Necromunda miniatures game, and he's like a very popular character from what I understand, because he's like fills in the Han Solo, Jack Sparrow, Star-Lord style, like lovable rogue archetype. He's like that archetype in the 40k universe. So of course he's beloved with 40k fans. He's like had comics written about him and a couple of novellas. So it was like a big deal that Kal Jerico appeared in this game as an actual character. I can't imagine that fans of the character are too happy with what he gets to do in this game, which is mainly just glorified mission control. He hangs out in the bar and kind of tells you what to do next while being kind of passive-aggressive snarky with you. I don't know. Did the character leave a marking on you at all? An impression?
No, and I'm kind of confused about how you're now telling me that it's like a beloved Han Solo, Jack Sparrow type of guy, because like if I would have known just from purely this game, I wouldn't have, figured him to be anything important. He was just like the most milquetoast random quest giver.
Yeah, he just, because, like, full disclosure, like, I haven't actually read any of his stories. I just, happen to know that this is, like, an established character. So you expect that he'd get to do something, but anything he does is basically off-screen, or he's just posing, or he's talking to you endlessly about what gang you should go bonk next. And, yeah, once again, just lost potential there. But okay, so there's going to be a subset of people who are like, forget about the story, what's important is the gameplay. And, well, for me personally, I really like stories in games, so I need that context there. But, of course, let's go on to the gameplay because let's move on to address whether the gameplay fills up the shortcomings of the story of this game. The gameplay can be fun. It was fun a lot of times, and it was satisfying. It's very kind of Doom and Titanfall and some like more modern, fast-paced FPS shooters. Like, it's really leaning hard on those. It's a pretty janky attempt at those, but it at least like nails a lot of the time the mowing through enemies like feel is satisfying a lot of the time. Would you agree on that front?
Kinda. Like, I made the joke when I finished the game and was writing the review that this is kind of like the meme where it's like, Mom, can we get Doom? And it's like, we have Doom at home. And then Doom at home is this.
You're super right. And same with kind of Titanfall. It wants to have those kind of cool, fast-paced parkour elements. Or it has the gameplay in there, but I feel like that ends up being rather underutilized throughout.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just like I kept trying to, I noticed about like halfway through the game, I was making more excuses for the game than I was, actually enjoying it. I kept going like, it's fine, it's got a little jank here, and the enemies keep running in like a straight line towards you, and like the whole glory kill system in this is really, really kind of like out of place, and the dog thing you have is even more out of place.
Oh yeah, good. I guess we should mention you have a cute cyber dog in this game who's supposed to like help you out in fights. The main use of that cyber dog was that its scent will reveal enemies around you. I actually didn't really find any use in actual combat with my robot pupper.
Yeah, and like most of the time, like all the extra stuff, like I upgraded my character to the peak at the end, and I noticed that I wasn't using anything of the extra skills or anything beyond the grappling hook.
Yeah, even wall running, because first of all, there's very few terrain where wall running seems like this is a thing to do right now. But on top of that, this very simple thing, maybe it's because I'm just coming from playing Ghost Runner, which was such a good parkour game, but just the fact that wall running doesn't happen automatically like in Titanfall or Ghost Runner, but you have to hold down space, is a weird design choice. I don't know if it's just that they didn't figure out how to program it to happen automatically when you're jumping next to a wall, but like it kind of discouraged me from using the ability because it's kind of a hassle. That sounds a little snooty. Like, I gotta press a space bar. But like in a fast-paced frenetic game like this, it seemed like a hindrance to have to do that in the middle of everything.
Yeah, and that was the weird thing, because they had built the levels to be really open, really big, but then they didn't really utilize them in a way that would be fun to actually traverse.
Yeah, it's the grappling hook's the main one, really, because there's some fun like climbing up places that the game provides. So yeah, and on top of that, like you do unlock, like you said, you can unlock a bunch of abilities you can use. And then there's just this weird decision. Am I just imagining, or do other games, when you open up like a weapon wheel or an ability wheel, don't other games normally like kind of go into like bullet time, so you have more like free time, like the chance to pick your weapon or your ability? Because this game didn't have that, and I kind of noticed that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is like a little bit of an accessibility help that it, just slows down just a tad to help you out, that you get this, a quick moment to, reconfigure yourself.
Well, this game didn't do that, or at least it didn't do it much that I noticed, and it kind of discouraged me from using either of the wheels, because it's, there's like 6 guys like constantly moving around me and shooting me, and I don't want to stop to stare at this wheel to pick out the skill I want when like they're already like maybe moving out of range if I want to use a specific ability. So all over the place, just these little choices in design. Again, I don't know, like maybe it's not choice but just necessity, like maybe it just wasn't easy for these guys to do it, but overall the end result is the same. Like there's a lot of things detracting from what should be, a fun run and gun game.
Yeah, and because it clearly is trying to emulate, Doom's a big one, and Titanfall is another, like you said, but it feels like that they didn't have time or then the budget to really, truly, capture what makes those two games special.
It's just like, like you said, like a kind of an imitation of those. It's trying really hard to hit the same beats, but its own, I guess its own like small scaleness and, being a double A game, in this case, unfortunately, pulls down the experience a lot.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that we're not trying to, punch down or shit on, budget titles. We both are big fans of indie titles and small games. But it's one of those things that when you're trying really hard, and this one does so, when you're trying really hard to emulate something or capture something, and you're drawing attention to it, like in this case, it's unavoidable that people are going to be constantly like noticing, oh, well, this was done better elsewhere.
Yeah, it is very, very like hard to avoid if you've played either of the games we've been talking about previously of that do these things better. Like you're gonna feel like this could work a lot better. But I guess positives, I will say it's got a simple Diablo-style loot system in it, and I did find that tinkering with those guns that you collect and the items was fun. It kind of petered off about halfway through. There wasn't enough new loot to hit those receiving gear dopamine receptors. But to begin with, it was kind of cool to see the selection of weapons that come up and the abilities you could unlock. To begin with, were fine if you could deal with the annoying ability wheel thing. What else did I mean to say about the gameplay? Well, I don't. Is there anything else you want to say about the gameplay? I think I covered my big beats on this.
Not particularly gameplay related, but I do want to mention that the one thing about the levels that I do want to praise, is that they look and feel really big. There's a great sense of scale. And one of the things that really kept me going through it, it's a short campaign too. It's not a long game by any stretch.
13 missions. If you don't do the side missions, I imagine you can get this game done in 10 hours. And the side missions are super unnecessary. They're actually way harder than the main missions. I felt way harder to beat the side things where you have to like kill a bunch of enemies who are really beefed up.
Right, like I think my first run of the game, when I took my time with it, was about a total of 4 hours.
And
that was
nice.
really just, and that's like really just taking my sweet time with it. But then like the second time that I started running through, I noticed that I like within 40 minutes I was already halfway through. And I'm like, oh, like this is kind of short.
Yeah, I guess I took things a little slower because I think I had double your time. But still, we're talking about a sub 10-hour game here.
Yeah, and it's really how you play it and what you do with it. Like the levels do have, and this is again one of those things. Like, did you notice that there are multiple branching story paths in the levels depending on your actions?
No, except the one prisoner guy you save at the end of level 2. That kind of felt like, because I got an achievement was, you didn't kill that guy. And I was like, oh, I could have killed that guy? But you're saying there were more things like that.
There was at least 2 other things like that I noticed, and I've heard from others that there's like events like that elsewhere, but it's like they're so poorly like instigated. Nobody tells you about them. And like the whole achievement of like, well done, you didn't kill him, and it's like, was that an option? Why would I even? I don't know who this person is.
Yeah, you're super right. He was a bit surly when I saved him, but I'm not the type to shoot a guy over that. I guess I don't have the right 40k mentality for the situation.
Right, and that was one of those things. Like, but that level, like, then again, we get to this kind of really weird mix here that the mission design is not great. But the level itself, you're on this massive ass train that's like traveling underground, like inside the planet, you know, in like who knows where, and hurtling, you know, hundreds and hundreds of tons of metal, and you're running on it, and like even when you first see it, you like see the massive train tracks, and this thing rushes over you, and you can like kind of get a sense that, you know, this is inhumanely large. It's pointlessly large, in fact,
which is kind of a staple of Warhammer 40,000. So good on them for getting that right.
Yeah, and then when you actually jump on it and get on, and you realize that you can, like, if you are quick enough with your reflexes, you can kind of like bypass entire sections of the level by jumping around the train and watching out for little paths. I'm a big fan of all of that. I like when games let me do what I want. You know, at least seemingly what I want, I guess.
Yeah.
And this one did that, so that was really great.
Yeah, I would praise the levels. And we're moving into presentation here. I think they nailed the feel of Warhammer and specifically Necromunda really well, looks-wise. It feels like a 40k game, but it also manages to feel, because Necromunda, like I said, is supposed to have kind of a different vibe from general 40k. I'd say, if you ask me, the vibe is that Necromunda is cognizant of how shitty everything is in the 40k universe. There's no pretense of glory the same way that you get out of the pitched battles and, you know, flag carrying space marines and dramatic like clashes of like armies. This one is like a very gritty, and like everyone knows that they're living a horrible life in this undercity, and that aesthetic is pretty well executed, I'd say.
Yeah, those parts did work, and you can tell that the team who made this, they do really like the material. Yeah. They actually, it's funny because they made a game called Divine Cybermancy in 2011, I think. Have you ever played that? I have not, no. I haven't either, but I've seen a lot of videos. It was basically like 40k with all the serial files numbered off, like they were leaning already on that like aesthetic in that game. And I think it's kind of cool that Games Workshop, rather than being like, sent them a cease and desist, they were like, well, you guys get it, why don't you make a game for us? That's pretty great. Yeah, it's kind of fun. But good on you guys. Like there is passion behind this, and I think that's why I still want to say that this game is worth checking out. Like it does try really hard, and it is earnest in wanting to make a really exciting Necromunda first-person shooter. I do have to, while we're on presentation, I have to raise up one thing I'm not sure how I feel about, is the soundtrack
of this game and all of the industrial metal that is in it, because I think there were some great tracks there on their own, but I don't know if that's maybe a little too far from the general 40,000 vibe, which is going for like dramatic gothic epicness. And usually when you play a 40k game, there'll be a lot of like orchestral, bombastic, music with Latin chanting, and this one was like Killing Floor / Doom / Quake with just like pulse pounding metal action. I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, I feel like a broken record here by saying that this just felt like outtakes from the Doom soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly. But like on their own, like I've listened to a couple of tracks afterwards. I really dig. In particular, the final level has this kind of more like ominous building up song, which actually really sells the kind of gravity of this is the final battle that you're building up to. That one was nailed really well, and I didn't even care at that point that it was metal. But otherwise, I like the genre, so.
And I don't usually like saying it, but I thought the voice acting was awful.
Right, you did mention this earlier. So did you play with both the male and the female bounty hunter?
No, I only played with the female bounty hunter because her voice, at least in the... I gave him a try in the beginning, but then her voice was slightly less annoying out of the two.
Okay, I never even checked out the male bounty hunter, so I was like, maybe he's okay, but...
No, he's worse.
Oh, wow, okay. I kind of like that the lady bounty hunter is like this Northern England working class person, like kind of sells that, what we were talking about, that satirical 80s England cynicism. But yeah, I don't know. She's a very grumpy lady, this bounty hunter in this game.
Right, and I think it's because also there's the whole, like, the first opening mission sees you with complete randos going on a mission, and of course, like any gamer will know, it ends, in tragedy. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, "Oh, I should have known. I never should have worked with other people. Oh, I'm so broken up about it." And I'm like, why do we care? Like, it's trying to do something dramatic that emphasizes her character, like as this kind of lone, angry, fighter and mercenary, but like it doesn't build anything because there's nothing to build on. So her just this kind of petty anger, and then everybody else just being equally stupid and grumpy. It just made the whole thing feel like they're trying really hard to do something that's edgy. Mm-hmm. And it works a little better in writing, but like the old Harrison Ford quote that you can write that shit but you can't say it is really in effect here.
Ah, interesting. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, like there's a reason there's a ton of 40k books, actually, probably, now that you think about it. Yeah. Did you think Kal Jerico was okay? I thought at least the voice actor did sell that dashing rogue vibe with him, okay?
I think he's not horrible, and like I don't think the leading lady is horrible either. I think they just like they're poorly directed.
Yeah.
Like the Kal Jerico has this thing where he'll mumble some lines, or he won't pause to do the like where there should be a pause. And it's something I've noticed that a lot of actors who are mostly TV or film actors will do, and it's something that doesn't work at all when you're doing voice acting. And I started noticing it that I had to like crank up my volume a couple of times just to hear what they were mumbling or trying to push through, because in TV you can do that, or because it's meant to be like, oh, your character's hurt by something or is emotionally struggling with something or trying to keep it from you. But then in a game you have to do it in a completely different way, and like here I don't think that either the voice director or the actor kind of got what they were going for.
Well, I think you're absolutely on the right track, because I checked some of the roles, some of the like people who were behind the voices, and I didn't really recognize any name, but almost everybody on the English voice cast was from like British TV, from what I could tell. and they had like a few voice acting roles from the last few years, but mainly like as far as I could tell, not even like the main guys on any TV show, like kind of like, shows up for a few episodes type of characters. So yeah, that I think that's bleeding into here a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we've said all we can on this game at this point. This might be the I hate to phrase it like this, but the worst reviewed game we've talked about on our channel so far.
Right, and even then, this is not something that we're outright saying please avoid. Unlike Hood, Legends and Outlaws, or Outlaws and Legends, whatever it's called. That game sucked. No, but this is like this is a budget title. I think the price is something like $30. So like, if you're really into this, or if you're really craving for a good shooter, once it hits a sale, I do check it out. It's not that bad. And I know that's damning, faint praise by saying it's not that bad. But it's one of those things where you, like, if you know what you're getting into, I think you're going to enjoy it more. And once you know that you're getting this kind of game that wants to be Doom, but it's not, and you adjust your expectations, it's a breezy, fun way to spend about 10 hours.
Yeah, I basically concur. Like, I like this genre, and like I said, I do have some feelings for the series still, so I was delighted to see it realized in a first-person setting. So I don't know who I'd quite recommend this to. 40k fans, I think, will be disappointed by the... Well, they'll delight by walking around in first person in that world. They'll be disappointed by how, like, Kal Jerico doesn't get anything new, or nothing really major ever happens in it. It's just business for life in Necromunda, but some people that might be exactly what they want. And gameplay-wise, yeah, it'll fill a fix if you've played every recent, like, fast-paced first-person shooter and you're waiting for something to come out. This will probably fill a fix, but it's an alright game. If Strumon Studio is listening, I think you guys need to keep working on this, because you've got great ideas going on here, and I hope you can get to version 1.0 on your next game, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, really, we are always happy to champion people who are doing something they're passionate about.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. On that front, this one's great. At least it's great that you guys got to make this game that you wanted to. Okay, I believe that is our episode wrapped up for today. That was a pleasure once again, Joonatan.
Yay!
Would you like to do some plugs on what is coming up with you in the future?
I have a couple of fun interviews that are out, and probably will be out by the time this episode is out on the market. I have a interview with the people who made the Loki TV series.
Right.
Which was a bit of fun. And then I also went and interviewed Mr. Jeff Hatton, who is the creative director on Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, which is the reboot of the Dark Alliance hack-and-slash series.
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
So those were fun, and also the review on Dark Alliance, of course.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that, having experienced a little bit with you.
Yeah. So I think there's a bunch of good stuff coming in, and then July is going to be a little more quiet apart from Sea of Thieves, because, well, nothing really is coming out. But then as we gear up towards the autumn, I think we're going to start seeing some really cool titles, including Halo Infinite, which is finally coming out.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it. Absolutely.
How about you?
Well, yeah, I think I'll just say really quickly that I think our show might have another summer hiatus precisely because of the thing that you mentioned. So I hope you guys will be patient if we don't get like a July episode out, because it might be a little quiet on our front. But we will be back in the autumn, at least, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Right, but what am I working on at the moment? Well, recently we've wrapped up Atelier Verona and What else was I playing? River City Girls. Those wrapped up. So now new games have started on my channel. Fell Seal is a tactical RPG that's a lot like Final Fantasy Tactics, and I freaking love it so much. So I hope you guys at home will also like watching it. It's freaking awesome. Phoenix Wright will be wrapping up soon, so I hope you guys are enjoying the exciting finale for that as well. And there's a big-ass game coming after that one. I decided to, I've been a little leaning on the indie and AA side lately, so now it's time to throw down a big-ass AAA game.
Oh, shit.
Look forward to that coming up. Oh, yeah. And let's see, what else? I guess we can tease that we will have another Let's Play that we recorded together coming up, but it's going to be around August, I think, with my current schedule. So,
yeah.
Look forward to that, everybody. If you liked our Halo series, this one should also be right up your alley.
Should be fun.
But I would like to make one more announcement here, and this one is actually, well, what passes for a bombshell for myself, because I haven't actually announced it to anyone yet. Streaming. I am planning on finally moving on to trying out some actual streams rather than my pre-recorded Let's Plays. I'm currently moving gears around to figure out how I'm going to do that. So I'll probably, at first, I will probably do some of the multiplayer games that I like to play just as a test stream, just to see that I get the feel for how to do it. Something simple, not a huge commitment. So I might post a video announcing eventually that there's going to be some, let's say, Street Fighter 5 or Warzone coming up. But the real thing that I want to stream, I want to do some art streams for you guys. So as you may have noticed, I do have some love for drawing because I've done all the podcast art myself. Those are all by yours truly, the sketches on the YouTube videos for the podcast. I'd like to, because I've been a little on and off with art, and doing the podcast art has been kind of an excuse for me to keep up that hobby. I would like to do some art streams to get some practice in, and also just have some fun drawing stuff, and maybe get some viewers who would like to offer ideas for doodles. So for that front, I have actually purchased a Wacom Cintiq recently, and I have been practicing using that. Sharp-eyed viewers will have noticed that today's podcast art has actually been upgraded from sketches to an actual line art. So that was me practicing how to do line art in Clip Studio Paint. The picture of Kal Jerico and the Cyberdog were done completely in Clip Studio Paint without any paper medium, where thus far I've just drawn on paper and scanned the sketches. So that will give you an idea of where I am with my art skills currently looking at that picture. I'm not gonna be full imposter syndrome and be I suck at art. I've definitely improved my drawing since I was a kid. I draw way better now, but there's still a lot of room for improvement in anatomy that I really haven't put the time into practice, and I'm hoping these art practice streams will give me the impetus to do that. And so if that sounds like fun, dropping in to watch me practice drawing, maybe improve as an artist, and I don't know, talk about random stuff, the kind of stuff we talk in our videos, then I hope you guys look forward to it. I don't know when it's coming up, but I am trying to set this up to happen in the near future.
Exciting. I will come and watch.
Oh boy, I would love that once that happens. But for now, this has been, like I said, it's been a great episode. We had lots of great topics we went through today. Like I said, don't know when the next episode's going to happen. Might be closer to autumn, but I hope you folks at home will all drop in then once we make our return. So look forward to that, guys. Bye-bye!
Bye-bye.